Can you? Never mind. Let's see. I can't believe all the people that said I looked like Snoop Dogg. What is happening? Oh, that was super funny. Oh gosh, this is way back here. There we go. Oh, what? Dang it. I don't like that TikTok updated their app. This is weird for me, and I don't enjoy this. There we go. Hello, welcome. Hi, I'm here. I promise. Hang on. Oh, okay. I gotta plug my phone in. Hi, welcome. What's up? Say hi to me so I know you can hear me. Hello. Hello. Hi, how are you? What's up, babe? Yes, indeed. How is everybody this wonderful Saturday night? What am I doing? I don't know. Just hanging out with my friends. Thanks for the roses. Hanging out with my best friend today, all day long. But you already know that. Thanks for the gifts. I love you. Very sweet. Yeah, what are we doing? Are we talking about the brain? What about the brain? Do we want to know? Snoopgate? You mean the weird idea that I somehow look like Snoop Dogg that has come up multiple times over the past 3 years and doesn't make any sense to me? And then last night somebody brought it up again. And so I posted a video on my TikTok about just, somebody happened to have a good soundbite that they sent to me of, hey, post your face next to a celebrity everybody tells you look like. So I posted my face next to Snoop Dogg because everybody tells me I look like Snoop Dogg, even though that's absolutely not true. And that's bonkers. And it blew up, and a ton of people said that I look like Snoop Dogg. And now I feel like it's just got to be a joke. Like I must be trolled. I'm being trolled, right? I don't actually share any of this dude's features. D-O double G. I mean, he's a good looking guy. He's very successful. He's amazing. He's a wonderful dude. It's definitely like not a bad thing to be compared to him, but I'm just saying, like, I don't happen to look like this guy. Although one person said he had those European thin lips, and I did too. I don't feel like my lips are too thin. I feel like they're okay. Maybe my upper lip is pretty thin. It's the goatee. It might be. It might be. I do though, huh? Okay, Katie. You gotta be shitting me. It's a joke, right? Ask me about the brain. Let's talk about Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg's brain is full of endocannabinoids and exocannabinoids. Ooh, maybe that's what we could talk about, the effects of cannabis on the brain. Yeah, vote in the comments. Do I look like Snoop Dogg? I don't think so. Our noses are way different. I feel like our noses are way. And then other people, and then a bunch of other people said, no, you look like Ice T. And then a bunch of people said, you look like Ice T and Snoop Dogg had a baby. And that baby was white. What's up, Greedy Vices? We're just talking about Snoop Cake. People calling me Snoop Dogg, saying I look like Snoop Dogg. It's got to be a joke. It can't be real. It can't. Oh my goodness. What is happening? What is the internet? How come I work so hard on videos? I'm constantly working so hard on my. None of them get any traction. Nobody gives a shit. And then the moment I'm like, here's something stupid, everybody's like, this is my shit. I work so hard. Why can't you appreciate and enjoy my other stuff? Greedy Vices, how are you? What's good with you? Do I look like Snoop Dogg? It can't be. Maybe I should put that in the background. Maybe I should have put that as the title of the live. Do I look like Snoop Dogg or not? What the hell is happening? Vote in the comments and then follow me on Neuraljack. I don't look like him. Yeah, I didn't think so. I don't think I look like him either. I feel like we're just way too different. He's too skinny.
Have you not seen my questions?
No, I didn't see any
Okay,
questions.
so cannabis is a blocked word.
Oh, cannabis is blocked. Okay. Uh-oh. Cool. Yeah, we'll see you over here. I've got somebody else here sneaking around. They ain't talking. I see you, though. I see you. You're right here. I can see you. Whoever you are. A couple of people. Hi, Ember. How are you? Ember Maypop. What's up? Do I look like Snoop Dogg to you? That's what I want to know. People keep saying I look like Snoop Dogg. I feel like I'm getting trolled by like a ton of people. Long-term grass use. Let's see. Okay, so one thing that's sort of been accepted by the CDC, I don't know if we trust the CDC anymore. They're just kind of all over the place. But they had quite a bit of information on that stuff and the brain. You don't see it. Yeah, it is super funny though. I don't see it either. But it keeps coming up though, is the weird thing. Like every couple of months, some person will show up in my comments and be like, "Man, you look like Snoop Dogg." And if he were white. And even my roommate, I had a roommate years ago who showed up with a bottle of wine with Snoop Dogg's face on it. And he was like, "You look like this guy." He didn't know who Snoop Dogg was. He was really old. I'm like, how do I look like that guy? I don't look like Snoop Dogg at all. What the fuck? A long angular face of mine is more round. Yeah, I'm like chubby. He's got like those like sucked in cheeks. Also, I think my lips might be bigger than Snoop's. He's got like little lips. On both streams at the same time. Dope. Thanks, friend. Hi, how are you, Heather? Hi, Nelly.
There's mom on YouTube.
Yes, mom's on YouTube.
Tell mom hi.
Harm says hi, mom. Let's see. Yeah, so we know that with grass in the brain, we know that if you're partaking in it before 18, there's a good chance that it can affect your memory, which is unfortunate for me, but I don't need to get into that. Let's see. We know with mice, they have like an adolescent stage, which is pretty young. It's, their lifespan is not very long. Mice are pretty much old by the time they're a year old. They don't usually live to be like two. Those that do are super geriatric. So mice grow into adulthood, I think around like 6 weeks. I can't remember. I think it's about 6 weeks, and or 8 weeks. Um, so there's like this little brief period at around 4 weeks where they're adolescent, and if you subject them to cannabinoids, right, exogenous, like grass, um, they have memory problems later in life. So like test them on memory skills a couple weeks later when they're fully grown and compare their tests of memory to other mice that have not been introduced to the green stuff, and they tend to do much more poorly. Mice don't live long for people who have them as pets. Yeah, that's true, but I mean it's part of the life cycle. I mean, and that's, you don't really want them to live that long either if you think about it, because like that'd be like walking around being 150 years old and like not youthful at all. Everything hurts, you can't move, everything's gray and falling out of you and off of you. you know and if you think about it, in the wild, mice don't live that long at all. They usually get picked off by something. So that's definitely a research setting, I think, or a pet setting. Do you think starting use of the green stuff young changes the way the brain forms functions? Yeah, I do. So something we know is that the brain has an endocannabinoid system, meaning that it's like endogenous, right? We have kind of like our opiate system. We have this thing inside of us naturally, which is why things like cannabis affect us, is because it works off of that system in our brain and throughout our nervous system. Fun fact: endocannabinoids are the widest spread proteins throughout the brain. So, like, uh, you have like dopaminergic neurons that are like generally deep in the brainstem, and they kind of project out to other places. You have like serotonergic neurons that are kind of in different spots for different things. You have cholinergic, or like nicotinic, nicotinergic. I don't know, but they have their place in like the hippocampus and throughout the nervous system, throughout the body for movement and stuff like that. But endocannabinoids are everywhere; they're all over the place. So if you are messing with that system at a young age, it makes sense that you're sort of messing with the whole system. Yeah, you love your mother. Your mother Mary sounds like a nice lady. I did not see your other question.
Go up.
Oh, endogenous opioids. Let me see. Do I think it affects endogenous opioids? I do think it interacts with that system. So we have an endogenous opioid system, which has to do with our ability to sense pain, mostly. Um, or rather than sense pain, it has to do with our ability to control pain. Um, Poor things. Yeah, it's okay. They like it. It's fine. um, I'm just kidding. I don't know what mice feel, but yeah. Let's see. So we have an endogenous opioid system that we use for a few things, but the main one that I know of is pain. I think there's also like a learning and a reward component in there too. But you know, when you feel pain, right? Um, there's different ways that you can feel pain, but you oftentimes, like, say you like, I don't know, you hit your arm on something, right? And you hold it, like putting that pressure and sort of overactivating the system will kick in your endogenous opioid system. I think that because endocannabinoids are so represented widely throughout the brain, they manipulate every system you have, and the endo opioid system is the same way. Like it will be impacted by use of the green stuff. So I think that that's why it works as an efficient um, pain relief for certain people, you know. Um, and it seems to be, it does have like a weird addictive property, but it definitely seems to be less physiologically addictive and more mentally addictive. You'll tell her I said that. Okay, good. Yeah, I've actually known her a very long time. Great woman, sure, for real. You love pain? Oh, good. Well, it's a special kind of person who does. Yeah, let's see. Why don't we actually like look this up and see what Google God has to say? Scholar. Hi, Scholar. Tell me the things you know. Ah, okay. Here we go. Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Blah, 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 blah. THC. Which is like the main active ingredient in the main psychoactive ingredient in the green stuff. So let's see. We have a paper here called Involvement of the Opioid System in the Anxiolytic Like Effects Induced by Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. Recent studies have shown that several pharmacological actions induced by cannabinoids, including antinociception. Antinociception is a fancy word for taking away pain. Nociception is sensing pain. So we're anti-sensing pain, right? And reward. Didn't I just say that? Involve the participation of the endogenous opioid system. Objectives. The present study was designed to examine the possible involvement of the different opioid receptors in the anxiolytic like responses induced by delta 9 THC. I'll just say THC. Oh, that thing. I gotta do that thing. Supported. Thank you. Aw, thanks. Where do I stand on what? Um, on the green stuff, it's fine. It's fine, I guess. I don't know. I don't partake, but you are a moderator. Hi, Garbage Badger. Hang on. Okay. So, methods. The administration of a low dose of THC produced clear anxiolytic-like responses in the light dark box, as previously reported. What's the light dark box? Effects of the pretreatment with cannabinoid receptor 1 antagonist and this is a bunch of big words. I don't know if this is going to be helpful for me to read to you. Where can I find this article? How do I read this? Let's see. Hang on. I have to download PDF. Sure. Yeah. Give me that. Sorry. One sec. Hi. Harmy. Hi. Yoo-hoo. What's up? What's up, Switch, please? How are you? Yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. We're trying to figure out. Okay, so they are using male CD1 mice. So that's Charles River, France, weighing 22 to 24 grams. That's fine. I guess we don't need. Okay, they're using mice. We don't really need to know much about them. Yeah, it looks like they're just regular. Yeah, they're just regular mice. Okay, so then they used drugs. They used THC from Sigma, which is in the UK. That's where we get our stuff too. That's where most people get their things, I think. Was dissolved in a solution of 5% ethanol and 5% chromophore. I don't know what that is. And then 90% distilled water. Okay, that's fine. So they gave him THC. The CB1 receptor antagonist, SR141716A, is another thing that was given. Dissolved in a solution of ethanol and that other stuff. I guess maybe used as a control. What is this? The mu opioid receptor antagonist, beta phenyltrexamine. Okay. The delta opioid receptor antagonist, naltrinidol, and the kappa opioid receptor antagonist, norbinaltrophamine. Okay. Da 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 da. Okay, they got those from Sigma also. That's nothing. Okay. Oh my goodness. You guys are silly. Let's see. Okay, here's the light dark box paradigm. So, the possible involvement of the endogenous opioid system in the THC anxiolytic like responses was evaluated in the light dark box. Mice were individually exposed to 5 minutes in a box consisting of a small compartment, 15 by 20 by 25 centimeters, with black walls and a black floor that was dimly lit, connected by a 4 centimeter long tunnel to a large compartment with white walls, a white floor, and under intense illumination. Lines were drawn on the floor of both compartments to allow measurements of locomotor activity by counting the number of squares, 5 by 5 centimeter crossed. Floor lines separated the lit compartment into 3 equal zones from the tunnel to the opposite wall, designated as proximal, median, and distal zone. I don't know if I can actually publish this on YouTube because I'm reading too much of this. Let me see. I'll try to paraphrase the rest of it. Okay, so they're in there for 30 minutes after an injection of THC. Let's see, in the second experiment, so in the first, they were looking at the effects of that um, antagonist, THC antagonist drug, or that endocannabinoid antagonist drug administration. In the second experiment, they're looking at the beta phenyltrexamine administration on THC, which is a endogenous opioid antagonist, meaning it messes with the system. And then in the third experiment, the effects of naltrinidol administration on THC responses were evaluated. Okay. What are the results? One way ANOVA revealed a significant effect of treatment on the time spent in the dark compartment and time spent in the lit compartment. So I think the idea is this is my best guess. I'm not super familiar with this paradigm because I've never used it, but there's like 2 boxes and they're stuck together. And there's like a tube between them, and the mice can freely go between the 2 boxes. One box is like almost pitch black. It's got like a tiny bit of light, and the walls and the ceiling are all black. The other box is all the walls and ceiling are white, and then there's like heavy illumination, so it's super bright. If you know anything about mice, they like to be in the dark. They don't like to be in the bright environment. It can cause them anxiety. What's up, Sambrosia? 3 a.m. and it doesn't feel like it. I love that you always join us, but it seems so late. I want to make sure you're taking care of your health. So I think this is a measure of how the light box, even though the mice can move freely, the light box is thought to be sort of anxiety inducing in the mice. So it seems like the mice will spend less time there. They're going to naturally want to go to the dark box. But if you're watching them and they have less anxiety, then in theory they'll go into the light box more, right? And then so if you pump them full of THC, they'll probably have a lot less anxiety, and so they'll spend more time in the light box. But what they're doing here is they're saying, well, what happens when we have a THC antagonist? So we give them the THC, but they have an antagonist that's actively working against it. How then does it still like the light box? In the second and third experiments, they're saying, what happens if we actually give them THC, but then mess with their opioid system? So we say, we're going to give their endogenous opioid system some antagonists and see if it affects their level of anxiety to the light box. Even though in theory, they're working off a different system. And so in this way, they're seeing if the endocannabinoid and the endogenous opioid systems are connected. And it looks like they did find a result. They found that they were connected and it was significant. You're always up at this time and you wake up late. Okay, well, hey, we talked about this yesterday, right? If that's your sleep cycle, that's your sleep cycle. What's good for you is good for you. Yikes, that's scary. The brain tissue be rebuilt? Actually, I don't know. One thing is, if brain tissue is not totally damaged, it can somewhat heal, but it doesn't work the same. And if scar tissue starts forming, that can cause a myriad of other issues. One thing is just to have scar tissue there kind of sucks. Another thing is if that scar tissue, not yet, that scar tissue can spread if there's enough trauma, which can cause, that's pretty obvious that that's going to cause some serious problems. I don't know if I need to get into that. If the neurons have died, depending on where it's at in the brain, but almost every place in the brain and spinal cord, there's almost like no chance that it'll come back. They'll die off. There is, certain kinds of brain trauma can be like circumvented through other circuitry. So that's a thing. Generally, like people who suffer traumatic head injury, brain injuries, TBIs, especially early on, even if you have a lesion to the brain, that's one of the funnier things about lesions and makes them really difficult for study is that at first we thought, if you lesion this part of the brain and this function goes away, then we say, this part of the brain is responsible for this function. But the problem with that is then you go to make an animal model, right? Like say a mouse or something, and you lesion that part of the mouse's brain, and then the behavior goes away, and you go, see, that behavior lives in that part of that mouse's brain. And then 2 days later, you test the mouse again, but then the mouse has the ability all over again. And then you look at its brain, it's like still lesioned, it's still messed up, but how did the mouse, so like the function came back, right? So there's definitely something to be said about synaptic plasticity sort of making up the deficit in a lot of areas. 3 hours late. Oh no. Foggy. I'm sorry. Yeah, go take them. Your brain's being wonky. I wonder why. I'm sorry to hear that. So yeah, it looks like the endocannabinoid and the endogenous opioid systems might be connected. That's interesting. Study was done by Fernando Berendero and Rafael Maldonado. 2002. Where were they at? Pharmacopharmacology. Psychopharmacology. I cannot read. Pharmacopharmacology. What does that mean? Let's see. They're at the Laboratory de Neuropharmacologia, Facultad de Ciencias de la Salud y de la Vida. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, looks like they were in Barcelona, Spain. Neat stuff. There are people in my lab that work with THC too, or like other cannabis things with spinal cord injury. But I don't know much about that. I know other people study it. I'm glad you're here too. Thanks for saying I'm handsome. Good. Glad you took them. Blames everything on your cycle. That's the easy way to go. Sambrosia, I have no idea how to answer that question. I don't know. Yeah, I imagine there's probably somebody has probably answered that. I have no idea. I'll see if I can find an answer, but yeah. Oh, it looks like there's something about that. You know what? I'll talk about that in a second. And it's Harmony's very confused about your question, probably because I don't know if people who you know don't urinate the way that people assigned male at birth urinate may have a different experience. So I don't know. I'll talk about it in just a second. But yes, it is a normal brain function for sure, and it has to do with your body's sympathetic nervous system, which is also your fight or flight response. Part of it. Bad depression. Are you for or against meds? I'm for meds. Yeah. Here's the deal. If your depression's bad, well, like, how do you define bad depression? All depression's bad, right? None of us want it. And if someone's experiencing it to a degree that they might unalive themselves, right? Anything's better than that, right? So yeah, take meds over that. If meds help you to not want to do that, good, right? But I think the general consensus is that medication does not work so great on its own, and that the best thing to do is to have a combination of medication and therapy to start off and see how you do. And then certain people may have to stay on meds for the rest of their life. But for the most part, a lot of people can be sort of like trained out of their depression. That's probably not a great way to say it, but you can go to therapy for a while until the symptoms kind of die down a bit. And then as that's happening, you're going to increase your therapy and decrease meds. That's like the goal. That's like what everybody wants to do if they can. Increase therapy, decrease meds, and then eventually stop taking the meds and keep the therapy going. And then eventually, you can slow down the therapy because you may not need it as often, but you should still continue to go to therapy because therapy is good for everybody. There's an argument for being off antidepressants. Yeah. You don't want to be on drugs for a long time if you can avoid it, is the thing. Hey, what's up, Kim? We missed you yesterday. I was so sad you weren't there, but I'm glad you're here now. How are you? Bless you. Jeez. Let's... On BuzzFeed a few years ago, heard of what? The peeing thing? Or the antidepressant thing? Oh, yeah. They're necessary for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with that, and and antidepressants treat a lot of things too, not just depression. Yeah, I'm sorry you missed it. You can always go back and rewatch it. I'm thinking about editing the videos so that they're a little more entertaining and there's a lot less like bullshit in between. We're doing good here. How's everybody doing? Yeah, let's see about Sam Broja's question. Let me tell you first off what Sam was asking, if anybody was unsure, is why men get, or people who are assigned male at birth get pee shivers. I don't know if people who are assigned female at birth get these because I've never thought to ask.
Like all the time or sometimes?
Like pretty much a lot of times when you go pee. So like I know for myself, and this is too much information, and many other people who identify as male, because those are usually the people I talk to, we stand up to pee, and then as we're peeing, and then like right around the time that we're like done, this like kind of jolt goes up your back, and you like shiver at the end. It's really weird.
Are men okay?
No, men are not okay. So Sam's like, why do we do that? Believe it or not,
Airbending thing, right?
it's probably well, I don't know. We can read about it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Hang on. Oh, this is a really cool. Okay. This is weird. I've never thought of this. So you have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. They're basically contradictory to each other, and they're both in competition at all times. And this acts to keep your body in homeostasis. Homeostasis is the just the product of keeping you neutral, where you need to be, right? So let's say if you're getting too hot, your body will cause you to sweat to help try to cool you down, right? If you're getting too cold, your body will make you shiver to try to warm you up. So you have these different systems that are always in effect, and your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous systems are in competition to keep your attention balanced. So your sympathetic nervous system is sort of thought of as colloquially, it's thought of as your fight or flight response, right? And then your parasympathetic is thought of as your rest and digest response. So when it's time to get up and get going, your parasympathetic is a little more active. And then when it's time to chill out and go to sleep, your sympathetic is more active. When it's time to rest and chill out, then your parasympathetic is more active, right? And so one of the things is if you get too cold, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and it causes you to shiver because you're getting too cold. And some people think that when you're peeing, you're releasing a lot of hot liquid. And so but the act of releasing a lot of hot liquid is actually like bringing your temperature down. So you might shiver to try to keep your temperature up a little bit. Where do you build calcium in the brain in regards to dementia? I'm actually not sure about that. Let me think about that for a second. So calcium is very important for all neuronal functioning. And the reason why is because calcium is sort of the indicator that your neurons are talking to each other. So without doing any research into this and just like bullshitting an answer for you, I can look into this more and probably have a better answer. But just like playing around with my understanding. I don't know that we're necessarily like So what's happening when neurons communicate is one neuron has to like fire across the synapse. It's like shooting out neurotransmitter. And then the postsynaptic neuron like receives that neurotransmitter. In order for the presynaptic neuron to release that neurotransmitter, it first needs an influx of calcium. So we're firing an action potential down the neuron. It's like flipping the polarity of the neuron as it, the electrical potential. It's flipping the electrical potential of the neuron. When it gets to the end there, you're hitting voltage-gated calcium channels, which allow calcium to influx into the cell. And bringing in a ton of calcium then binds the vesicles that are filled with neurotransmitter to the cell membrane, and thereby release the neurotransmitter through exocytosis. So you see that influx of calcium right before that happens. If you have a bunch of neural degradation, right, and a bunch of this building of beta amyloid plaques, right, because of dementia, which is thought to be the main cause of dementia, or one of the main causes of Lewy body dementia, I should say, maybe Alzheimer's, stuff like that. It makes sense to me that you would have a lot of calcium in the soup, maybe more so than usual, because that calcium is not being absorbed by the cells.
Can you refrain from saying calcium in the soup?
No, that's what it is. It's chemical soup. That is what your body is. Chemical soups. Feeling better. What? Oh. How's the not COVID going? Yes, I'm still negative and I feel great. Thank you for asking. I did get to spend I had to spend a week away from my wife, and it was a sad, horrible adventure for everybody involved. But we're together again. Lucky us. We get to watch bad TV and eat awesome bad food. So if I'm going to die of something, hopefully it's not COVID. Hopefully it's good food.
Pancakes take me out, so be it.
If it has something to do with testosterone, I don't know about that. Maybe could be. I wonder if people who are assigned male at birth but then transition later still get this. Oh, okay. Yeah. So shivering doesn't just happen when you're cold. It also happens when you're like afraid or excited about something. Sometimes we shiver because we get that adrenaline rush. So it's possible that we are getting like a small rush at the end of our peeing, which is really weird. Let's see. It can happen to anyone and can occur as young as infancy, apparently. So it does happen to people who are assigned female at birth. It is harmless, and it does happen to males more frequently, but can happen to females. These are not my words. This is this article's words. I don't like to refer to men and women as male and female, but science does. Yeah. So they're saying it might be the drop in temperature that's causing it. It also could be mixed signals in the autonomic nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Well, the autonomic nervous system is kind of part of everything. Let's see. So your autonomic nervous system is the part of your system that controls stuff that you can't really control, like how your bowels are moving or how your heart beats, things like that. And of course, then your blood filtration is happening that way too, right? So it may have something to do with the way that your autonomic nervous system is talking to your bladder. I don't know why it would happen more in men. Okay, let's see. When your bladder is full, it activates nerves in the spinal cord called sacral nerves, which brings this parasympathetic nervous system into action. So you're relaxing, right? Which makes sense. You cause your bladder to kind of expand and let the stuff out. And when urine leaves the body, your blood pressure drops. Oh, okay, this makes sense. So when your blood pressure drops, you then have a reactive response by your sympathetic nervous system to kick you up again, right? Because if your blood pressure drops too much, you'll pass out. So it's like, hey, don't pass out, wake up. Yeah, that's what one person is saying that it floods your system with catecholamines uh, in an effort to restore your blood pressure. That's one thought. They don't know if this is true. So this used to have a name, a medical name that was kind of a bullshit name and didn't mean anything. Post matriculation convulsion syndrome. It's not a recognized syndrome, but it was like back in the early 90s. Nobody knows why it happens. It's just a weird phenomenon, I guess. You never heard of this? For the prostate? I don't know, maybe. Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine. But you get chills easily, so maybe yours is related to temperature. But it looks like that's a really good explanation, though, that it might be related to blood pressure drops. Because like that happens when you're like pooping too. Actually, that's like a common. Actually, it's not so common now that I think about it. Almost nobody I've talked to knows about this. If you're suffering from severe anxiety, go take a poop because you can go poop and you'll kind of push on those same nerves, drop your blood pressure.
People who have dysautonomia, sometimes pooping will make them pass out.
Yeah, that's true. If you have dysautonomia, you might be careful because you don't strain yourself, right? You don't want to end up passing out, but it will drop your blood pressure if your blood pressure is spiked.
Do you think that's why old people die in the toilet a lot?
I don't know if that's why old people die on the toilet a lot. Maybe, could be. Maybe that's how Elvis went. Poops help headaches too. Yeah, poops help everything, really, if you think about it. If you're ever anything, doesn't matter. If you're tripping too hard, go take a poop. It'll help. Don't look in the mirror. Yeah, you can get goosebumps when you're not cold, for sure. Yeah, and that's the same system too, to my knowledge. Your sympathetic nervous system, when you get like, right, when you get like a fright response, people get goosebumps. Yeah, and if you ever talk to like combat veterans too, there's weird stuff that happens to the body. We don't need to get into that. That's a good question. I don't know. Let me ask. Google God, tell us the things. Let's see. Doesn't directly. So this is in regards to the HIV question, right? It says, let's see. This is from the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health. Okay. So this is their article on HIV and AIDS. It says HIV does not directly invade neurons, so your nerve cells throughout your brain and spinal cord, but puts their function at risk by infecting your glial cells. So this is very much how like COVID acts too. Your glial cells support your neurons and protect your neurons. They, you have a specific type of glia called astrocytes that are really important. They are responsible for blood flow. They tell they tell your brain and your body where blood needs to be directed for nutrition purposes, and also for like cleaning things purposes. Like, if you have debris, or if you have an immune response that needs to happen, all sorts of things. Glial cells do all sorts of things to protect your brain, your nervous system. So the NIH says that HIV triggers an inflammation that may damage the brain and spinal cord, and cause symptoms like confusion, forgetfulness, inability to concentrate. You might experience behavioral changes if it happens at the front of your head, headaches, mood disorders, like especially related to anxiety and depression, as well as some movement problems like loss of movement control, or lack of coordination and difficulty walking. This is likely, when that inflammation affects the brainstem. Yeah, so not directly, but they can cause some serious issues that will affect the brain downstream. Let's see. Damage to the peripheral nerves, so that's like everything outside of your spinal cord, can cause weakness and loss of sensation in your arms and legs, and also shrink your brain overall. Yeah, you don't, in general, putting pressure on your brain and spinal cord are a bad thing, but they can be reversed. Usually, they can be reversed, but on some occasions, you have to reverse that pressure quickly. On most occasions, you want to reverse that pressure quickly, and the quicker you can take away that pressure, the better. Oftentimes, if you have some sort of ailment in the brain or spinal cord due to pressure, the moment you relieve that pressure, it goes away and the brain will heal. But if it stays there too long, that compression of that neural tissue over time will kill it, and then it can't be repaired. People often experience compression of neural tissue in their ocular nerve behind their eye, and so they'll lose vision. That's usually one that you can lose quickly. But again, if you catch it fast enough and remove the pressure fast enough, you can usually reverse it. It's not permanent. Let's see. You can also experience pain, seizures, stroke, shingles, difficulty swallowing, fever, vision loss, even go into a coma. There's all sorts of problems. Yeah. You're welcome, Sam Berger. See the study of an egg in a dying person and the resulting brain readings? I have never heard of this. Morbid curiosity. Tell me more about it. Why don't we develop a vaccine that creates antibodies which target beta amyloid peptides? So vaccines target proteins on I don't know. Well, there are many different types of vaccines, and they all work in different ways. But usually, they're targeted at viruses. So the thing is that these beta amyloid proteins, or these peptides, like you're talking about. Hold on, I'm trying to like switch gears. So the problem with that is not that something is necessarily attacking you. It's more that your nervous system is having a hard time degrading tissue that's being damaged. And it might have a hard time even metabolizing appropriately. So, like, your cells need to metabolize to keep themselves alive. And then your cells, in and of themselves, have a lifespan. They're going to die at some point, right? The majority of the time. There's other weird research that we can talk about, but we're not going to do that. but essentially your cells are going to die at some point. So they metabolize until they can't, and then they die. But in the process of metabolizing, you have uh, you have proteins all across the cells, all across their membranes, and a lot of these proteins are they work by what's called a secondary messenger. And so I'm trying to keep this simple enough for people who may not know these mechanisms, but you can have proteins that act as direct channels, like they'll just open and they allow neurotransmitter or other chemicals to just flow through, like calcium and calcium, sodium, potassium are the main ones. But other times you have a secondary messenger. So what that means is when the neurotransmitter binds to the protein, that protein then sends a signal into the cell, and then that signal into the cell causes like what we call a cascade event, which then goes on to open a bunch of other proteins and allows the other proteins to do their thing. So this is like a more complicated mechanism, and it has different proteins that are all interworking together to make this happen. And so this beta amyloid plaque is really the buildup of these proteins that are all working together to get this main protein to function. So what's happening is when the cell dies, your cerebrospinal fluid should pick it up, and your nervous system should have a way to clean it up, right? Break it all apart, and then recycle what you can and make use of it, and then take the rest out and excrete it in some way. Just get rid of it. The problem with like Lewy body dementia, right, is that that person is having trouble breaking down those beta amyloid plaques for some reason, and because they're harder to break down. And so what's happening is, instead of being carried away or recycled with the rest of the junk when that cell dies, all of it's carried away and recycled except for those proteins, which are then left in the synapse, and they're just sort of like gumming up other synapses. So you have a bunch of nervous tissue that's all sort of meshed together like a big web, right? And here, I need to unplug my phone. You have all this nervous tissue that's meshed together like a big web. And so when you have a neuron die close by, it's releasing those beta amyloid plaques into the synapses of other neurons that are trying to communicate. And it makes their communication less efficient. And if they can't communicate efficiently, they also can't metabolize efficiently. And if they can't metabolize efficiently, they also die, right? So then they die. They leave behind beta amyloid plaques that aren't able to be recycled or carried away, and they further gunk up the system more and kill off more neurons, which cause more beta amyloid plaque, which further gunks up the system and makes it even worse. And so it's like what? So usually when you notice somebody experiencing symptoms of dementia, by the time it gets bad, it like goes downhill very quickly after that. Not very long after that. For that reason. We are trying to figure out a way, maybe like medication or something, to fix it, but yeah, it's I don't know how you'd make a vaccine to target something like that. Drill holes in the brain back in the day. What was the logic behind it? And bleeding too. So remember earlier I was talking about if you have pressure in the brain, one of the ways you can get, so like a stroke, right? How does a stroke hurt somebody? Well, a couple of ways. One is if you pop that blood vessel in the brain, there are parts of the brain that aren't getting appropriate blood flow, right? Okay, that's going to damage them. You want to get them adequate blood flow quickly. But the other thing that happens is that you're creating a pocket of blood somewhere in the brain, and that pocket of blood is just expanding and it's pushing on all that neural tissue. And it doesn't take very long for that neural tissue in the surrounding area to die off because it's being, in essence, crushed. And so, you might not be able to help somebody with a stroke with this immediately. I mean, I'm not really sure how strokes are treated now. I should look more into that. I should know more about this. But I know that back in the day, if you ever like hit your head really hard, and this is still true, they still do this. You can start building up fluid outside of your brain, between your brain and your skull, and it starts to crush your brain. This is what I was talking about, where this is one of those things, if you handle it immediately, it's reversible, but people will have like vision loss. They might lose part of movement on one side of their body. They might lose their sense of smell or hearing, or all sorts of issues can come up. And then they go to the doctor, they do a scan, they're like, wow, there's a lot of pressure on that side of the brain. Okay, pop a hole in their head and drain that blood out, because that blood is crushing that side of the brain. Then the moment they do, assuming that they get to it quick enough, the problem goes away. Kind of. It takes time, right? Because, you probably have had some damage, but yeah. Harm. Hello. How long is your brain going to be stupid from COVID? I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't answer that. It looks like it's different for everybody. Here's the thing. It's affecting those astrocytes and your other glial cells that are responsible for supporting your neuronal function, right? So, in theory, it shouldn't be permanent. But also, loss of your sense of smell should not be permanent either. And for most people, they regain their sense of smell in about, anywhere between like 2 and 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks. You should like almost 1,000 likes. Jeez, thank you. I appreciate that. Wow, I didn't even realize. Thanks for all the likes. Wow, I didn't even realize there were that many. You guys are too sweet. Yeah, so the other thing is that some people's sense of smell is not coming back at all. And it's been like a couple of years. So I don't know if that's any indicator as to how the rest of your nervous system is doing. But if you've affected your sense of smell, I'm going to assume you've probably affected the other parts of your nervous system too. And so I'm going to say that the effects of COVID on your brain will probably be remedied anywhere between 2 and 6 or 8 weeks after, hopefully, or it might be longer. And hopefully it's not permanent. I hope not, but I have heard that it is permanent in some people. That is a solid brag. I've never seen anybody do that before. What might you be able to do to help support the recovery of those cells? I don't know. Let's look. Do we have any answers for that? Let's ask the National Center for Biotechnology Information, the NCBI. Let's see. Using biomaterials to promote pro-regenerative glial phenotypes after nervous system injuries. General potential of nervous tissue. Okay. So it looks like your peripheral nervous system has better potential than your central nervous system, but your central nervous system is what we're asking about. Yep. Here's the other thing. That's your oligodendrocytes and your Schwann cells, which produce that myelination that is required for efficient communication. Okay, this review focuses on factors that cause glial cells to adopt repair phenotypes and biomaterials that manipulate and or harness these glial phenotypes. This may not be what we want. Oh, great. Nice graphic. I'm disappointed by a lot of scientists' artistic ability. I feel like I shouldn't say that. That's mean. I'm blessed to be able to make good graphs. No, I don't think we're going to get help from this. No, it's not what we want. That's spinal cord injury. No. Thanks for the gifts. You are all very sweet. Don't do that. I don't need that. I appreciate you. Oh, what is this? ucdavis.edu. Conversion of glial cells to neurons. That's not what we want either. That's interesting, though. Oh, that's crazy. I'm not finding anything. Let's see. Regenerate. Okay. Essential for. Okay, yeah. Ooh, okay. So it looks like the best thing to do is to try to prevent neural degeneration, right? And if you can do that, then the nerves that are maybe having a hard time can be repaired, or the neurons, I should say, not nerves. But also your glial cells, which are like specialized, weird kinds of neurons. They're not quite neurons, they're a little different. But there's an article here. I don't know how accurate it is, but it looks like it's linked to an NCBI article, the National Institute of Health, NCBI. It says the crossroads of regeneration and repair in the CNS. But some are saying that if you're drinking a lot of green tea and you're consuming oily fish and ginger, lots of berries, these kinds of things can help give your brain cells what they need to prevent neurodegeneration. And if you're doing that, it gives them a chance to repair themselves. Let's see. This is one of those things, if we knew what it was, the person who figured it out would become absolutely famous and would become a billionaire for this knowledge somehow. People would just throw money at them all the time. Oh, parallel those found development. Yeah, most of what I'm seeing, the problem is most of what I'm seeing isn't about how do you fix your glial cells when they're being targeted for something. Most of them are about, here is a person or a type of genetic or something that is really good at that. And here's why we think it might be. That doesn't really help us here. Fresh. You do have a personality. You have a wonderful personality. You don't smell bleach anymore. Well, that's a good sign. And if your sense of smell is muted, did it ever go away entirely? Because if you see some progress, then that's a good sign, right? As long as you're seeing progress. Yeah, yay. Dysautonomia, kind of. That's one of the symptoms of it.
Well, it's not kind of. It literally is causing that.
Yeah. What I'm saying is it's causing that, but that isn't what it is, right? It's causing other things too.
Yeah.
You have a lot to say about it. I see that.
That's what happens when you marry a smart boy.
Sounds like Harry Potter words. Yeah, thanks for all the gifts. Too kind. You're all sweet. Oh my god, so many gifts. Yeah, step one, just don't. Never left. Okay. Well, hopefully it progresses. I am going to say that the act of not smelling bleach constantly is probably some sign of progression, I hope. That's the hope, right? Yeah, I don't know. True. Yeah. It's hard to complain when you're not dead, right? At least there's that. There's always that. Better than the alternative. Some people have ended up in really bad situations. Not to say your situation doesn't suck, but it's better than being on, respiratory support. That shit's awful. Oh boy. I was reading articles about that, like what all the levels of progression if you just continue to get worse with your COVID symptoms. Like, how bad does it actually get to try to treat you medically? And it is insane. Like, at some point, they'll have you like suspended upside down from the ceiling, like trying to get you to just be able to breathe something. It's so nuts. Thanks for the gifts. You're very sweet. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's really scary to think about. I'm so glad I'm vaccinated and boosted. Yeah, my coworker who gave us that scare, he said he's still feeling it. He said he got the brain fog too. He's kind of where you're at. Yeah, we're trying to be safe. Luckily, if you're vaxxed and boosted, hopefully nobody got the J&J because it looks like that's not super helpful. But Moderna and Pfizer are really good. Hopefully it just protects us the best that it can, Yeah. I think mine worked for me, kept me safe. Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have any symptoms. I was in a room with him in close proximity without a mask, and he didn't have a mask for a brief period of time. And he definitely had it. So he said he didn't, because he said he tested negative. Then he tested the next day and sent me a message. And we weren't unmasked together for very long, but we were for a little bit. And he sent me a message the next morning. He said, "Hey, dude, hate to tell you this, but I have COVID and it sucks." I'm like, "Thanks a lot, man." So I immediately like ditched my bed and woke Harmony up. And I was like, "Hey, we got to stay in separate parts of the house now." And wore a mask the whole time. But luckily, I tested negative the whole way through. So
Thank God.
yes, I'm going to continue to wear my mask forever. I think. I don't think I'll ever not wear a mask from now on in public. I don't want to breathe other people's dirty air and all the exhaust and stuff from cars, things like that too. I think I'd rather just keep the mask on. And I really love it being socially acceptable for me not to smile at everybody I see anymore. I hate that. Right. Yeah. I'm breathing the same air as weirdos. um but yeah, like gosh, any chance I get where I don't have to actively be smiling, like I hated that when my bosses would always tell me I needed to smile, present a good it's like I don't feel like smiling. Why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just be a human being? I like wearing a mask because it's like I don't feel that social pressure to like put on a I don't feel the social pressure to put on a mask. As weird as that sounds. Mask to unmask. Stinky strangers. Let's see. Damn COVID. I wonder what we know about COVID now. Let's ask Harvard. No, I don't need that. Thank you, though. Yeah, I mean, people are really afraid of COVID brain fog, but we seem to forget as a society that there are other viruses that cause this too, that people will get and is also permanent. Viruses in the brain are no joke, especially when they mess with your cranial nerves. It can really screw you up, cause a lot of pain. Visually smaller than it should be at your age. You have a diagnosis of ADHD. Coincidence? I don't know. Honestly, probably not a coincidence. Because we now know that we don't exactly know what the cause of ADHD is. We know that there is a genetic cause of ADHD. We also know that there are like other reasons why symptoms of ADHD can occur. One really common symptom is damage to the brain, and especially with the prefrontal cortex, right? Because your prefrontal cortex is responsible for impulse control. So it would if you have a smaller prefrontal cortex than normal, it honestly might not mean anything. It could mean that your brain is just fine the way it is because it operates that way. Everybody's brain is different, honestly. It could be fine. But if it is smaller, there are less cell bodies there. There's less gray matter, right? There might be less processing power. And so if there is less processing power there, then you might see the same impulse control problems that you would see with ADHD. And that might very well be a cause of it. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two. We can try to see. But like, if I'm just gonna guess before looking, I don't think there is. But I'll look. Oh, actually, yeah, there totally is. Okay, according to the NIH, published a paper called, sorry, it like kicked me to the bottom of the paper, The Emerging Neurobiology of ADHD, the key role of the prefrontal association cortex. And then it kind of skipped me to this chunk here. It says altered prefrontal and catecholamine function in ADHD. Catecholamine is important for a lot of things. Um, yeah, so your catecholamines are important for increasing your heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing rate, muscle strength, and mental alertness, right? So that's part of your system that's like waking you up and causing you to pay attention. So it makes sense that if you're affecting your catecholamines, you're going to have attentional issues. And it says imaging studies have shown reduced size and reduced functional activity of the right prefrontal cortex in patients with ADHD. Recent studies have also reported more disorganized white matter tracts emanating from the PFC in patients with ADHD, consistent with weaker prefrontal uh, connectivity. So not only is it smaller, but also the white matter. So you have your gray matter and your white matter. Your gray matter can be thought of as the cell bodies, and your white matter is sort of the tracts, right? So it's like you have your cell bodies, and then you have the axons that project. So the axons projecting is the white matter. They look white because they're myelinated, right? Which makes them faster. So it says that the way that the tracks are lined up is a little more disorganized also. That's you. Yeah. Yeah, neat. I actually had no idea that was a thing. It totally makes sense. Like just on the face it makes sense. So, yeah. Very interesting. How old is this paper? That's another thing. You always got to look how old the paper is because, you never know if better information has come in. Looks like this is not too old, but it's kind of old. It's 2010 is when it was published. So who knows? There might be. It's by Amy Arnston, PhD. You never know. There might be new information. You're 62. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know when you had your brain scanned either, but some of that might just be due to age too. You never know. But if they did say, hey, for your age group, this is different, then there probably is something there. Thanks for sharing with us. It's interesting. For your age group, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. It's like some things are actually kind of obvious, but you just don't think about them. Although I guess that wasn't obvious to me until I read it. In fact, I even said I don't think that's the case. I don't know why it would be, but yeah. And another thing is maybe it's not true for everybody. Who knows? Ugh, reading about COVID stresses me out. Hyper focused on it for a while. Yeah, I could see why. I don't think anybody likes to hear. That's the thing. I don't think people really like to hear that we're different than the average, unless we're hearing that we're better than average about certain things, right? But like most of us don't really want to be different from the average in terms of health, right? Because it's scary, or it feels scary at first. But like anything, you get used to it, and you usually find people that are like you in most cases, if it's not super rare. I don't think ADHD is particularly rare. I think it's a pretty common thing. So you definitely probably have a lot of support, especially now that more and more people are realizing they have ADHD. Mm, this is for uh, Chris Garbage Badger. What might help clear the brain fog? This is from Harvard. So it says to help clear the brain fog. Wait, let me see. This is Andrew E. Budson, who is an MD. More curious than anything. Don't care that I have ADHD. Thank you for answering. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Thanks for supporting my content and interacting. If you don't already, you might follow my YouTube on Neuraljack. It would be helping me out if you subscribe because I need more subscribers. If not, that's okay. Let's see. What might I need to clear the brain? Okay. Perform aerobic exercise. So you might need to start off really slow, maybe 2 or 3 minutes a few times a day. There's no established dose to improve brain health. It's generally recommended that you work out. You want to work towards working 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So start exercising today. If you're like, you've exercised for 2 minutes and you're like, man, I am out of breath and I'm dying, stop. Try to do another 2 minutes later. Try to get to 30 minutes throughout the day. It'll probably get better with time. This one's fun because it's nice. Eat Mediterranean style meals. So a healthy diet, including olive oil, fruits and veggies, nuts and beans, and whole grains, has been proven to improve thinking, memory, and brain health. I don't like the word proven, but given that it's an MD from Harvard, maybe it's okay to use. But yeah, so eat Mediterranean style meals, which is dope. I think people like that. I love Mediterranean food. Avoid alcohol and drugs. This is actually very important. You need to stop putting things in your brain that adversely affect it. Let's see. Yeah. Don't mess with the neural chemistry any more than it's already being messed with, is the general goal. Sleep well. It's very important to sleep. That way your brain and body can clear out its toxins and you can regenerate your energy. And sleep as much as you need. When your body says, hey, I'm tired, do it. Sleep. If you sleep and you wake up and you're like, man, I still feel tired like an hour later, go back to sleep. It's okay. Let your body do what it tells you it needs. Participate in social activities. It says not only do social activities benefit our mood, but they can also help our thinking and memory as well. This, I think, can be considered a type of social activity, but you probably want a bunch of different types of social activities. You're always welcome to come Zoom with me and Harm, or we can play games. We can play some Jackbox games. We haven't done that in a while. That would be fun. Yeah, I think that's about it. Also engaging in novel, cognitively stimulating activities, such as listening to music, practicing mindfulness, keeping a positive mental attitude, but also like just trying new things out. How do antidepressants work? It depends on the antidepressant. They all kind of like do something a little bit different. So generally when you're getting on antidepressants, they'll start you off on like a small dose of something just to see if it'll affect you negatively. And if it doesn't, then they usually up the dose and they see if it helps. And if it doesn't, after about a month or so, they'll move on to a small dose of something else. So the mechanisms by which these work are all different, but the general goal is to try to balance the neurotransmitters in your brain that affect emotion and mood, usually related to serotonin, which is why oftentimes selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are used, which are called SSRIs. So it's theorized that in some people, depression is caused by a lack of serotonin in the synapses. And so if you put more serotonin in the synapse, it should, in theory, kind of fix the situation. And for a lot of people, it does. So what a selective serotonin, thanks for the follow. The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, what it does is when you have a neuron communicating to another neuron, the neuron that is pushing the serotonin out is often also reuptaking that serotonin. So the process of reuptake means it's recycling it. It's taking the serotonin back in so that it can use it again. If you have serotonergic neurons that aren't particularly efficient at producing serotonin, rather than let them reuptake the serotonin, you can put a reuptake inhibitor on that neuron. So what happens is that drug goes in and binds to the reuptake proteins and stops them from recycling the neurotransmitter serotonin. And they're selective because they only happen in certain serotonergic neurons, which is why you may need to move to a different medication if that medication isn't working, because it might be working in a different part of the system, right? Or a different part of your system might be affected. That's what I should say. So if you stop that presynaptic neuron from being able to take in that serotonin is effectively stuck in the synapse. And so it's still available for the postsynaptic neuron. So what's happening is you're continuing that communication longer, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. So look at just like a WebMD article. It's not like a fancy article or anything, but yeah. Help improve your mood, sleep, and appetite and concentration. It's important to know what to expect, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Oh, here's another thing. So another thing that's thought about the way that they work is that they often take a long time to work, which is why people who prescribe you the antidepressant will usually have you take it for a few weeks, because it takes around 3 to 4 weeks before you start to notice a change in your mood. And the reason why is because it's not so much thought that the medication is like pushing that serotonin into the synapse. That is what it's doing. But by pushing more serotonin into the synapse, you're sort of teaching those neurons that they need to communicate more efficiently. And so over time, you're actually kind of growing the connection between the two. And so, this process is not instant. It takes time. And so it's thought that after about 3 to 4 weeks, you're actually improving the connections that you have. Yeah. So for most people, you might notice like a tiny change at first and then an actual change a little bit later on. Yeah. Coffee fruit extract. See, it boosts brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, by 143%. Bam! I don't know if that's actually true. That's probably super unfactual, but that's the first thing that comes up in Google. The reason why is because it doesn't come from a reputable source. It actually, I think, is coming from a supplement service, and I never trust those. It doesn't look like there's a lot known about it scientifically, but let's see. I think I might have found a resource. Right. This article is by Dan Brennan, an MD. Oh, it was reviewed by Dan Brennan. It's a diet article from Nourish by WebMD. I don't know who wrote the article. It doesn't say. Um,
This sounds like a Dr. Oz thing.
yeah, I'm. Uh, hmm. Well, no. It might boost your immunity. It looks like it boosts your immunity for sure. Um, and then you're also going to feel good when you take it because it's got a lot of vitamin B, which just like kind of tends to boost people up. There's other benefits to coffee too, which is like kind of naturally, it's sort of known, right? Like you have antioxidants and polyphenols, which can be really good for you. But as far as like boosting brain function, I think that's because a lot of people are saying, hey, this really boosts your brain function. I don't know why it would chill you out. I don't know why it would make you more calm. Oh, here we go.
Well, that has.
Yeah, it looks like it can decrease your blood pressure. Yeah. What did you want to say?
Oh, pretty much, yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, vitamin B is used for stress relief. I don't know. It might make you chill because it can lower your blood pressure. I don't know what other kind of effects that it has, or that these are even verifiable. I don't see a lot of medical or peer reviewed anything about this. So I think this is mostly colloquial, just speech. But I mean, there's definitely like known uh, uh, advantages to drinking coffee and coffee products for sure. Treating an old concussion. I don't know how you treat an old concussion. Um, I think you can do things like I don't know. It would probably look similar to what I was reading off with the COVID, the long haul, the brain fog treatment. Right. You want to perform exercise, make sure you're getting good blood flow. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Um, Aerobic exercise, right? Eat Mediterranean style meals, so lots of olive oil, fruits and veggies, nuts and beans, whole grains, right? Avoid alcohol and drugs, that's for sure. Don't put things in your brain that mess it up more. Get good sleep and participate in social activities and pursue other novel activities. So, like, keep your brain actively engaged in things. That's the best thing you can do, is always be doing something different, always do something new, something fun for your brain to engage with. I like to play puzzles. I like to play a lot of video games. Sometimes I'll take time to learn about a new thing. Sometimes I research uh, various disorders, things like that. It's always something different. That is what I'd recommend to you. Uh, Obviously, when you have a concussion, you want to treat it sooner rather than later. And the earlier in life that you experience the concussion, the more likely your brain is to recover fully from that concussion. Although, with enough concussions, there can be other things that happen that can be very detrimental. Um, one thing is you can cause a sort of cascade of brain damage that just continues to rot your brain if you have enough concussions. Usually a problem with pro wrestlers and fighters. That's why sometimes you see them kind of go crazy. Um, Yeah. It's hard to treat old damage. You know what I mean? Because after so much time has passed, you're sort of the way you are. Let's see. What else we got? You're very welcome. Yeah, thanks for asking the question. I've heard that the overuse of melatonin can cause your brain to no longer produce it. Do you know why? Yeah, this is true of like any chemical that your brain produces. If you pump too much of that chemical into your system, this so let me think of an example. Drugs are usually a good example for this because, let me give you the example of the endogenous opioid system, right? With the drug opium. So when you put opiates into your system that are exogenous, right? Such as, oh, that's why. Okay. Such as, I don't know, heroin, pain pills, all sorts of things you can put in. But the problem is that they are very depressing on your system. Thank you for the rose. Um, they're very depressing on your system. And so normally you have your endogenous neurotransmitters that come in and they communicate to the postsynaptic cell, right? But when you flood your system with that drug, that chemical then acts as an agonist for that neurotransmitter. So the drug, being an agonist, essentially facilitates that communication between those neurons. Okay. The problem is if you have too much of it, you'll die, right? You'll become too depressed. You too chill. Like when I'm saying depressed, I'm not saying mood wise. It can affect your mood, right? And it does. That's why people use it. But I'm saying depressed in the sense that it depresses your body's activity. So you can die from it, right? Your heart will stop. You'll stop breathing, things like that. So your body reacts by doing things to protect itself, especially over long term use. After a few weeks of use, your body will do things like, hey, let's stop producing so many proteins receptors. Let's stop making it receptors for this neurotransmitter, which normally would be endogenous, but is in this case is exogenous because you're eating it. Um, so it says, okay, if all this chemical is going to be in the synapse, I'm going to stop being so efficient at taking it in. And then another thing that happens is you're going, well, if so much of this is in the synapse, the presynaptic neuron is going, I need to make less of this also, right? So that I don't. So now I'm going to make less of it naturally because I don't need it. I have too much coming in from the outside. I'm going to not release it as easily because there's already enough that's in the synapse. There's too much. So I'm not going to be releasing any that I do make. I'm not going to make any. I'm not going to release any that I do make. And then everything that is in the synapse, I'm going to try not to accept it because there's too much. So, of course, the first time you use it, you flood the system. It's this huge euphoric effect, and everybody's like, wow, this is an amazing thing. And then they chase that feeling because your body immediately does not like that. It's like, oh, this will kill me. I need to protect myself. So, like, people tend to chase that high because they want it to be like the first time, but it never will be because your body is actively defending against that because that will kill it. So over enough time, eventually your body doesn't produce any, and it will not accept any that you put into the system if it can help it, right? And so this is true of all sorts of chemicals, not just opiates, but like melatonin, things like that. I don't know what the numbers look like for that. I don't know how big of an effect that is, but it makes sense to me that your body would eventually stop producing it because it's like, hey, I don't like this. You're over flooding my system. Your anxiety triggers have gotten worse. Why is that? Fears you never had before. Heather, I can't say for sure. I don't know if you're ADHD. If you were part of our conversation yesterday, sometimes that can train you to be anxious. But I think a lot of anxieties are learned and trained, right? And we can. I wish I may have to give you an answer for this at a later date because I want to go re-examine this. But we can sort of train ourselves into the habit of being anxious about particular things because we sort of get a sense of reward. Even though it's not really rewarding, we're using the same reward circuitry to train ourselves, right? So I'll try to give an example. I don't know how well I'll be able to explain this. I really need to research this mechanism better because it's a really cool mechanism, but also kind of detrimental. Yeah, let's see. So one thought is that when you're experiencing anxiety, right? Usually it's geared towards something. Like for me, I have driving anxiety. When I'm driving, I experience anxiety about driving. And it's like, well, what thoughts are triggering it? And I don't usually, this is what's bad with what I'm doing, is I don't generally think about what's triggering my anxiety. I'm thinking about the thing that's triggering my anxiety. Like, how do I say that? So rather than going, oh, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? What are the thought processes preceding my anxiousness, right? Instead, I'm going, am I going to die? What if I have a heart attack while I'm driving? What if this person just like pulls out in front of me? I don't know. And it's because I'm so anxious about that because I've had serious traumas around driving, right? So I'm always worried. What if somebody behind me I'm not paying attention to slams into the back of me? That's happened multiple times. It almost killed me once. I also, the other time it happened, totaled my car and I didn't get any money from that because I had to use all the money that I got from my car being totaled to pay off the mechanic who had previously just fixed my car so I could use it. That was really traumatic for me, right? I was like 16 when that happened or 15 when that happened. Yeah. So, I have these thoughts going off and then I give in to them, right? So I've trained myself essentially that when I have anxiety, I worry about it. And that worry is sort of my reward mechanism. Really, I need to learn how to replace that and put it into action. So when I'm having anxiety, instead of going, what am I having anxiety about? And pull the car over and just stop, right? Which has essentially been my solution. Instead, I should be doing something like, with curiosity, examine my symptoms, right? That's a different mechanism. So, okay, I'm anxious. What am I feeling? Well, I feel like my heart is racing and I feel like it's going to pound out of my chest. I might have a heart attack. Okay, you're not going to have a heart attack. That's super unlikely. Could happen, but probably not going to happen. Okay, so that's what that feels like. like? I wonder why. You know, have that genuine curiosity about it. What is it that's making my heart beat so hard right now? What is it that's causing me to breathe so hard or possibly hold my breath? Right? Why am I so hyper focused? If I need to, pull over because you should. You shouldn't be driving if you're like out of your state of being. But essentially, you kind of have to untrain yourself to unlearn that habit, right? Of feeding into those thoughts. That's very much related to OCD also, right? So like obsessive compulsive disorder is defined by the main characteristics of obsessive thoughts and compulsive actions to try to appease those thoughts, right? But rarely do the compulsive actions actually fix the obsessive thought. They actually don't. But as you're doing it to try to remedy the obsessive thought, you're further strengthening those connections, right? And so, like with this anxiety circuitry, you have this obsessive thought of anxiousness and you perform a detrimental action. Um, in my case, freaking out about my state, even though I should curiously just examine it, and further strengthening that and reinforcing the idea that the next time it happens, you'll perform this action again. I hope that kind of makes sense. I need to read more into this so I can understand the circuitry better. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, mine is also driving. The neurochip that Tesla is working on to help with dementia. I don't really have thoughts about that right now because I have looked into it and I don't see a lot. I don't know if Tesla is just like, or if Elon Musk, I mean, is just like, I don't know if he's just like secretive and guarding what he knows, or rather, not what he knows, but the people that work for him, what they know, or if they legitimately just don't have an idea of what they're doing. Because anything I've seen about it is purely conjecture. It's like, oh, we have this really cool idea. We don't know how it's going to work. And maybe they do know how it's going to work. It just seems to me like they don't, but they might. They might just be like keeping it close to the chest, you know? So I don't know. I have no idea how that even could work. It's like it's a neurochip, right? It's supposed to help with memory organization, but how? What is it stimulating? Is it working off the hippocampus and how the hippocampus is directing information throughout the cortices? Is it working like an external hard drive and just hanging on to the information? I don't know how that would happen. That feels really unlikely to me. So I don't know. I have no idea. Anxiety can often manifest around things that we didn't used to be afraid of because we're anxious about other things. We feel out of control of those things. Right. Yes. Harmony like hit the nail on the head there. Um, the more out of control you feel about your life, the more doubt you create around your own ability to handle that lack of control. And that really is like the stem of all anxiety, isn't it? Like uh, feeling like you don't have control over a situation. That's part of the driving for me. I know that I'm a really safe driver. I actually don't doubt that I'm a safe driver. I know that I am. I've been driving since I was 14 years old, you know, and but the problem is that I'm worried about other drivers because I can't control them and they're really scary to me, especially because they've almost taken my life multiple times, you know. They can tell when a pig smells of food it likes. I mean, that doesn't seem like a very hard thing to do. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Let's look more into this. Why don't we look at it right now? Um, Jeez. Neuralink has raised over $200 million. Okay. Well, they show a monkey playing a video game using its brain, so maybe there's something there. Looks like a tiny company beat Elon Musk to testing the brain chip in humans. So Elon Musk's company Neuralink was not the first to do this. Let's see. Yeah, so this is the other thing. Most of what I have seen with Neuralink is to help treat patients um, who suffer from paralysis, to help them interface with electronics. Oh, I think I see the thing about the pig. But this, I see a Sunday Times talking about the pig, but I don't know about. Yeah, that's the thing. I have such a hard time finding anything about it that isn't just people saying what it's supposed to do. What is it supposed to do? But then how does it do it? Yeah. Yeah, I see that they looked at the brain activity of a pig. This isn't anything new either. We've been doing this for a long time with helping paraplegic people to be able to use, cursors on a screen. You can hook people up to computers and make them think simple things like left or right, red or blue, that kind of thing. Um, so it looks like we're expanding on that, which is cool. Study neurons firing so they can find a way to help people. Um, yeah, so that's the thing. That's all of neuroscience, right? Is to study how neurons are firing and what that means. And a lot of people think, for the longest time, well, it first started off, where's activity occurring? Okay, it's occurring everywhere. But like, okay, where's it occurring during this behavior or activity or thought process? And then it's like, not only where is it occurring, but at what rate is it occurring? What rate is the firing? So that's like, oh, well, over this span of time, this part of the brain was firing more and this part of the brain was inhibited more. Okay, that's great. And then it was thought, well, the pattern in which the firing happens, there might be multiple parts of the brain firing at a pattern. What does that mean, right? And so that's currently the narrative held. Like, okay, we need to understand this combinatorial code. And then the new thing that not many people are talking about, but I think is pretty important, or it's going to end up being more important than people probably realize, is we shouldn't just look at the pattern of activation, but we should look at the pattern of deactivation too. Or not so much deactivation as it is not activation. So it's like if you see a neuron firing, what about the space between the firings? Because sometimes you see da 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 da, right? And different levels of activation will cause different levels of firing, right? Obviously. But that pattern of space in between the firing might also be important to examine. So I think that's kind of like where they're aiming. That's where all technology is aiming, is to try to understand this process better. How come that isn't a thing with prosthetics yet? It is, I think. I think it is. The problem is that there's a couple of problems. So the first and foremost problem is funding. In order to get funding for a project like that, you have to convince the person who's going to fund you that it's necessary. And it's hard to convince people that that's necessary, especially when you can get the function done. This is where everybody goes to. I hate this. I hate this conversation because it always falls back on can you get the same task done with minimal effort? What's the minimal effort required to get this task done? Right. And the reason I hate that is because it's like, yeah, but if, like, I get that that's important to keep in mind, but we could go so much further if we weren't inhibited by that. It's kind of annoying. So it's like, oh, why should I make this person's fully articulating hand that interacts with their nervous system directly when I could just give them a hook? And that hook will work fine. What do they need to do? Need to drink out of a cup? A hook will grab a cup. They can use that. It's like, yeah, but what if they want to grab a cup like a normal human hand? Why can't they? Well, it's not necessary. So there's that whole issue. The other issue is one of the reasons why this happens to be the case. This is actually the more important issue, in my opinion. This is probably the most important issue, in my opinion, is to get something to interface with your nervous system directly. It requires highly invasive surgery. And it's dangerous surgery too, because if you're affecting your central nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord, you could cause that person to die. You could cause them to develop seizures. You can cause all sorts of issues, especially like sensorial issues. And what if you have to sacrifice some sensory stuff in order to even make it happen? For instance, how do you provide a surgery that implements the ability for your nervous system, your nervous tissue, to talk to a machine without pain, right? Because your nociceptive system is part of that system. So it's like, oh, well, we may have to kill that part of the system so that that person isn't just entirely in pain the whole time they have. But I mean, we have other stuff we can use to base that off of. Like, people get like surgeries to replace stuff all the time. For instance, my grandfather, before he died, he had both his knees replaced with steel. So yeah, we know a little bit from like that kind of thing, but there's just so much to it. Right. Can't get the function done without it. Yeah, it's a hard point to argue.
It's not.
The invasive part is the hardest point to argue, because then you have to get it past an IRB for approval. And that's a tough thing to get people to say, yeah, sure, cut them open, shove things in their nervous system, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Like an IRB it's a whole thing. But yeah. But I mean, that's my goal. That's kind of what I want to do with my career. I would like to interface prosthetics with the nervous system. If I can ever find, I don't know. I just need to provide good reasoning. That's what I got to work on. And also find out where I'm going to do that. Am I going to go to MIT? Am I going to go to, I don't know. I got to meet more people. Meet more people and
Am I
see
gonna
what's
go
out
to Yale
there.
for grad school or MIT?
Am I gonna-
No.
Am I going to go to Yale or MIT? Yeah, right. There's a good chance if I applied to Yale right now, they would not take me. The elites are tough, and all people really care about is lining their pockets, not helping people. That's true. I mean, that is a very motivating factor, right? But I mean, it's not that that isn't important, though. It is. Sorry if that was loud. I don't know. But that's important to think about. I hate it, but it's true. It's important. And the reason why is because you need to bring in funding in order to fund further things in the future, right? What are the neural consequences on not finishing anything you start? I'm not actually sure what the consequences are. I would ask rather, what's causing that? Because if you are starting a ton of tasks and you're not finishing any of them, but you're constantly doing a bunch of things but never finishing any of them, that's actually a symptom of a disorder. It's called mania. And it may not, that in and of itself may not be a manic episode, but generally people who are undergoing a manic episode tend to do that sort of thing. You're breaking trust with yourself, which can cause a lot of issues. That's true. That is very true. Yeah. Let me think on that for a sec. So, when you break trust with yourself, you're losing your sense of integrity. And when you lose your sense of integrity, in essence, you are, like Harmony is saying, you're not trusting yourself. Which means that you start to lack efficacy over time, a sense of efficacy, right? You might sort of train yourself that there's no point. Starting less and less tasks, not motivated. That also can be an issue, right? That actually very much often is an issue in people's lives, and so they go and seek help about it. That can be depression. It could be a lot of, it honestly could be a lot of different things going on. Sometimes people with ADHD have that problem too. Yeah, but so if you're constantly engaging in a task and then giving that task up too soon, you're also sort of training yourself to, I don't know how to say that. You're sort of saying that it's not important for you to do. Almost like somebody else will take care of it. I can't. Yeah, you're welcome. Let me see what I can find on this. Huh. It looks like this has a name some psychologists use called the is it Zeigarnik? Wait, Zeigarnik effect. It's the tendency to better remember. Oh wait, that's something else. Let's see. Oh, yes, this is something that's very important. So when you have incomplete tasks, it can cause you stress, right? You start to become stressed with your incomplete task because you're going, I don't know if I have the resources to finish this, right? And but knowing that it needs to get done, and this can be a problem, especially with people who procrastinate, right? To the point where they may even give up. I've seen that problem in school. That's why I'm always telling students, hey, if I see a student not like turning in their homework, I usually reach out to them and I say, hey, you were doing so good at the beginning of the term. I noticed there's this drop off and I really just want to talk to you about it, because this is not consistent with, the average person. And so I just want to make sure that everything's okay. And oftentimes I find that person's like going through a lot of stress. And so I try to give them an opportunity to make up with extra credit, whatever they can. And this is like going back to those habit forming cycles, right? So like that are detrimental. So like in this state, you have this unfinished thing that's causing you stress and anxiety. And you may not overtly feel stress and anxiety, but they're kind of looming in the back of your mind about this task. And so this further reinforces itself when you have to pick up a new task, because you've already sort of taught yourself that there's no way to finish the task, and you also lack that self-efficacy to finish the task. You don't think you're going to be able to do it, right? And so that causes you more anxiety. It's like, I've already proven to myself that I couldn't do this other thing. Now I have to do this new thing, and I couldn't even do the last thing. How am I going to do this thing? And I still have to go do the last thing, right? So this can create kind of a detrimental trap for people to fall into. More things to train yourself out of. I don't have a problem with people wanting to make money, but we should come together when it matters. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, we definitely should. If money didn't rule the world, that would probably be the way it would be. Like, if I didn't have to worry about being in poverty, and I didn't have to worry about keeping my wife and I fed, and in a house, and driving and doing all the things that we need to do to survive, I would do this for fun, and I would just go to work every day because I enjoyed it. I legitimately enjoy my job. I really love my job. I would do it every day and not need to get paid. I don't need to get paid. If all my needs were met, I could do whatever I want. I want to travel, I can whenever I want, But unfortunately, we live in a society that is dictated by capitalism. So it's just never going to be the case. Everybody's too consumed with the idea that if nobody has to work, then nobody will, which is just not the case. People will do what they want to do, and that will contribute to society. We live in a much better place. Thanks for the roses, by the way. Oh, you're back. Sorry, I didn't see you. This is the way, yeah. Just being stressed out all the time and never completing anything is the way. It's true. Yeah. That's how science goes. I'm constantly in a state of everything being incomplete, and I'm just constantly trying to push these things forward. That's like the majority of the job. And then eventually you complete something, publish it, and present it. More productive when I have hard deadlines and multiple things to do that must get done. Otherwise, endless not done stuff. Yeah, totally. That's another thing. Maybe you need to set that. That's something you need to do for yourself. You set that thing in stone. This has to be done by this time, right? Deadlines can often be a good influence. Even with people who do get by on procrastinating, right? They turn in their term paper, they start working on it the day before it's due, finish it over that night, and then
Don't make eye contact with me.
I'm looking at Harm because she's that person.
I'm ADHD, doing my best.
She's doing her best. I do the same thing sometimes. Some of my best work came out over the course of one night, just working the whole night through. So don't enjoy my job, sadly, but I'm held back by a contract. I'm sorry to hear that. Here's the real shitty thing about that is if I'm ever an employer, yes, Harm, everybody knows you're very special. Um, yeah. If so that's the thing. If I'm ever an employer, I don't want my employees to hate their job. That makes people so unproductive. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? What's the point of having you here if you don't want to be here? That would make you so unproductive. And the way our society is set up, the best motivator is money. I should offer you more money so that you actually enjoy being here to make that money, right? But it doesn't work that way either. One day paper writer. Yep. Well done, Harm, says Kim. Yeah. Yeah, Harm's a 4.0 for anybody who doesn't know or need to know.
I hope.
Don't enjoy my job, held there by having to pay rent and afraid I'll suck at something different and get fired and be screwed. Well, let me tell you this. You will suck at something different that first day, but you'll be better by the next day and hopefully even better by the next day and even better the next day. And after about 3 months, you'll start to know what you're doing. And after about a year, you'll kind of be a professional in whatever you're doing. So don't let fear of sucking at something stop you. If you really hate your job and there's a job out there that you think you can get and might enjoy more, go do it and give it your all. You know, might take a couple of weeks to get into it, but I think it's worth it. And you really won't ever get there if you don't ever take the risk. Non-merit based pay, which you hate. It's just job title and time and position. Yes, Sensei. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks. That's a bad position to be in the military, so they think they can treat us however they want. That's because they can. You're literally their property. So the government is not good to its people. I was almost in the army and I decided not to go because I knew it wouldn't be serving my country. It would literally just be stealing oil from other people. And I just did not feel like fighting for that. And it was later confirmed to me that that was the case by all my friends who did go into military service. Now I work for a VA clinic because I do support our veterans. Um, and I really feel bad because, you know, everybody supports our troops. But the military doesn't care. They just literally own you. That's it. You take any drug they tell you to take. You do everything. You can't even cut your hair without their permission. And then after the fact, when you're done serving, everybody just forgets about you. It feels like, unless you're already doing well on your own. But there are plenty of people who need mental health services that don't get them, who need housing services and don't get them, who need medical and psychological services and don't get them because our government fails to deliver what it said it would deliver, especially if you're a person of color and especially if you're a woman. Sorry that you're in that position. Hopefully it does pay off in the end.
I dropped the toothbrush in the toilet.
Good job. Yes. Yeah. What is it? That's like Jake's quote from Adventure Time.
Yeah, it was gonna censor sucking.
Yeah. Sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at something. You're about to be amazing at several things. Awesome. I like that attitude. They ask why we don't want to stay in too, which is hilarious because they give us no reason to stay. Yeah. How's the food? Bad. How's your social interaction? Bad. You just develop a ton of horrible coping mechanisms. Like that's literally all the military is bad coping mechanisms and do what I say because I said so. Vets have to jump through hoops to get their benefits, kind of like insurance companies. Why does everything suck? Everything sucks to keep the rich rich and the poor poor. That's literally the whole goal. Yeah. That's why the rich never serve in any wars. You know, it's not their job. Their job is to be rich and be happy. It's your job to die for them. That's true. You would have better promotional opportunities at Taco Bell. But there are instances, if you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, there are instances where you can get out of the military, hopefully partially unscathed, and you can get a good life out of it. I do know one guy who was a Marine and, just handsome white guy who went in, probably killed a few people and got out without getting hurt. He's also a bit of a sociopath, so it didn't bother him that he killed other people. And he justified it. And, he got a whole house out of it. He got a house and his education was free. He got lots of stuff out of it, But I think the thing about that is he never made, he wasn't a problem. I think people who come back with medical issues, mental health issues, people who come back like severely impaired and need help, they're the most work. And the more work you are, the less work they're willing to put into you, it almost seems. Here's a psychological question. Why do we historically allow the selfish to rise to the top and be rich and shit on the rest of us? Not nearly enough uprising in history for my liking. Most of this is due to brainwashing, which has been a thing since the dawn of man. But if you convince somebody that you hold all the money or the power, for a long time it was just, I don't know, I have to be careful talking about this because I don't want to get kicked off of TikTok again. But I'll just say that religion is a heavy factor in this. Because if you're the person who holds all the power, you tell everybody what to do. And when they question it, you say, you don't get to question me because I'm the one who talks directly to whatever power that be. Yeah. So what it comes down to is this. If everybody else is poor but you, nobody can hurt you because you can always pay someone really well to shield you. And with capitalism, the whole idea is to separate the worker from the means of production, right? The worker gets the least amount of payoff for all their effort, and the boss makes all the money with the least amount of effort because that's the worker's job. And you'll notice that in the United States, a very significant portion of our population believes that that's the way it should be because they were taught to growing up. In fact, these same people, now I'm getting into way not neuroscience things, but I mean, development is important to neuroscience, so I'll talk about this. Those same people are in control of our public education. They get to determine what teachers are allowed to teach our kids and how they do it, which is why you're seeing a lot of things like books being banned and it's not okay to say gay anymore and all sorts of other things. Yeah. It's to keep people stupid. When you're young, you don't know what questions you should be asking, right? Yeah. So I think that's the goal, is to keep you from asking. I think Harm and I should definitely talk about this at some point. It's true. I haven't had an eye exam in 3 years, and they don't care if I have proper care for my eyes. Hopefully you're not in charge of keeping anybody safe, Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the farther you can divide people, right? Because then you only have two groups of people. Actually, you have three groups of people, two of them very poor. So you have the top, which is like exploiting the shit out of everybody. This is literally the essence of capitalism. Exploit the shit out of everybody. And then down at the bottom, you have people that are pissed off about it. And then the people at the top say, well, you don't want to be mad at me about that. The people holding you down are the people just below you. Right? So you have like the working class who makes nothing and works the most. And then you have people who are below that still work pretty hard, but literally can barely survive. And somehow they're the ones to blame. Right? So big cognitive dissonance there. Do I have an opinion on an ideal model for society, or Harmony's opinion? Ooh, Harmony's got all sorts of opinions.
Who asked for my opinion?
Uh,
Who's it asking?
Kimsta. Yeah. I'm a little bit more of a socialist. We're a socialist household here.
Yeah, we're socialists.
Yeah, we believe that you should work because you want to, and you want to provide for your community and do cool things. Everybody should have access to everything all the time. The only people, I firmly believe this, the only people who think that system can't work are pieces of shit that would manipulate that system. That's it.
Or people who are wildly misinformed.
Or people who are wildly misinformed and also would likely take advantage of that system, which is fine. There will always be people taking advantage of any system. You know how many people are on welfare and need to be? A ton. You know how many people are on welfare and take advantage of it and they don't need to be? A very tiny, minuscule amount. But people often inflate that amount to make it seem bigger than it is and then try to say, oh, everybody's just trying to suck on the government's teat, right? But that's not the truth. Nobody wants to be in that position. Nobody wants to be in that position. Nobody wants free money from the government when it means that you actively can't do anything you want to do. You can't like file for certain things you may need to file for, including disability, right? Like there's all sorts of things. It just keeps you trapped. Most of the people who are living off of that kind of funding are stuck living off that kind of funding because they have no other option, because that takes away all your options, right? Nobody should ever use the government for help, because the systems that the government requires you to do to maintain that really puts you in a shitty position. Our government basically puts everybody in a shitty position, no matter what, especially if you go to jail. Oh my God, then you're screwed. So I would say education free for everybody. That's the first thing. Education is free for everybody. You can take that as far as you'd like to take it. We would be an infinitely better society if people were more educated. That's the first and foremost. Second thing, any resource that humans need to survive should be free. You should be able to have a house that's safe and operates safely. You should have access to clean water, and you should have access to adequate nutrition. And nobody should ever live in a food desert, right? Things like Flint, Michigan should never happen, where their water has been unsafe to drink since the dawn of time. Like, how long has that been a problem now? And it's never been, it's always addressed and never fixed. So those things for sure should be free, just right off the top, out the gate. Healthcare should be free right out the gate. What else? Yeah, that's how I imagine the ideal society. The selfless and conscientious somehow can retain power. Yeah, I don't think that's the other thing. Everybody's vote should matter, and it doesn't. Not here in the US. But that's the thing, is like I think we figured out that having one person in power, typically an old white dude who's like bordering dementia, should probably not be the guy leading the country. In fact, we should probably have like a team of people leading the country. Maybe they can be varying demographics, right? That way they can accurately represent the American people. Maybe we have a team of people, some women, some men. We should have like half and half because the population's about half and half. Maybe we should have a certain proportion of white people, a certain proportion of black people, a certain proportion of Hispanic, Latino, certain proportion of various Asian communities, whatever, but make something that's more representative of the actual demographics of the US, right? And it should be geared towards the people, not towards profit. How do we make people's lives better, not how do we maintain us being way richer than everybody else, and not get eaten alive in the process. You're a grunt. You shoot your gun all the time. Well, good thing you can't see for the enemy, huh? Yeah, that's right. Divided people can't focus on the big picture. Yeah, we're all just doing our best. It really is just a system of brainwashing. Ever since, that's why we stand up and say a pledge of allegiance to our flag, right? Those of us millennials who we all grew up doing that, and it's not okay. That's definitely brainwashing. If you didn't know, that's brainwashing. That is exactly what it looks like. You are a victim to propaganda. And if you think otherwise, then they've succeeded. Yeah. Do you know any research done regarding why people who are on medication for substance use relapse, since those medications target the brain? Yeah, but Biden's definitely pushing dementia. There are better candidates for sure. But I'll take him any day over the last guy. Well, one of the things is using chemical substances to fix a chemical substance use disorder is just generally kind of a hard thing to do and maybe not a great idea in most cases. I think for people, generally that's done for people on opiates, sometimes people who suffer from alcoholism. When it's done for people who suffer from alcoholism, it's to keep them alive because you can die from stopping alcohol intake. But for people, on opiates, you're not going to die from not taking more opium. You'll be fine. It'll hurt like hell because it's the most painful thing to withdraw from, but you'll survive it. It won't kill you. But the thing is you're still using chemical substances that work on those same synapses. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Every drug is different too. I feel like personally, as part of a member of the recovery community, I feel like quitting things cold turkey is the best way to do it, unless you need medical intervention to keep you from dying. The one that is really difficult is opiate use because it won't kill you to stop taking it, but it will make you wish you were dead. Right? Yeah, take him over Flop Bear any day for sure, Kim. It will make you wish you were dead. And I think that's why most people relapse off of it. You can take other medications preventatively to try to keep you sort of at bay, but the endogenous opioid system that is afflicted by your opiate use also has a lot to do with your ability to sense pain. So when you take the opiates out of your system, you fill your body full of pain. And it's very uncomfy. super itchy. Also, some of the weirdest and most horrifying side effects. To give you like a, kind of an idea, um, you can spontaneously crap your pants and ejaculate at the same time out of nowhere for no reason, coming off of opiates. That kind of stuff can happen to you. Um, that's not fun, and also is super unbearable, right? So I think generally things like that have a high chance of relapse because it's too hard to get through the sobering period. It's too hard to wait to get through that period. As far as whether or not the medications to treat that have higher rates of relapse, I don't actually know. I'm not sure that they do.
I have a theory if I can interject.
Sure.
I think a lot of times people who just take medications to deal with their substance use disorder aren't really getting at the root cause of what's causing the substance
Right.
use.
Yeah.
And so they're more susceptible to relapse if they're not getting at that underlying cause.
Right. So Harm makes a really valid point too. One of the most important things about recovery is to identify the root cause of why you're using the way that you are. And for a lot of people, they simply use because they do. They're your neural mechanisms have been hijacked, and so you're doing it to try to stay alive. So you think. It's not always true, but so you think. Kim. Sounds like a party, yes. And it kind of depends. It depends on what the substance is. Some people are using chemical substances to mask pain. That is not necessarily physical. It might be physical. You know, a lot of people get addicted to opiates because they hurt themselves and then they're just stuck on the opiates. So it's like, what's the underlying condition here, right? Well, simply you've actually just kind of taken over your tissues. But there are other people who are taking, and that generally is the case with a lot of people. But there are other people who are taking substances because they're hurting deep down. And if you never address the hurt deep down, no amount of chemical intervention is probably going to help you without addressing that as well. Yeah, you weren't allowed to not stand for the national anthem. Welcome to the US. Yeah, it's bullshit. It's a bunch of bullshit. Do you know of any therapeutic treatments besides meds and therapy then? Well, I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? Like, how do you treat somebody therapeutically without therapy? You got to have some kind of therapy. The person should not treat themselves. That's for sure. That's actually the problem. Is likely they are treating themselves for something. So you definitely need to see a doctor or somebody. Huh? Oh. Let's see. Another thing that a lot of people who are actively in addiction and need help suffer from is a lack of community. Kim says you had a good take, Harm. Trauma that caused them to seek out substance to numb dullness. Yeah. I do want to mention that that's not always the case, though. And in fact, in my experience, the majority of people who suffer from chemical use disorders aren't actually doing it to hide from anything. They're doing it because their neural circuitry has been hijacked, which is a different thing. It's not that different, but like they don't actually have a root cause that's like deeper than that. There's a lot of people who don't have a root cause any deeper than
But
that.
them understanding that that's why could be them getting to that root cause. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. For them, that could be the root thing. Therapy will always be best, I think, but also having a sense of community and belonging, because a lot of people who suffer from chemical use disorders feel the need to ostracize themselves. And, because for a lot of reasons, they might feel embarrassment because our society teaches them they need to be embarrassed. We shouldn't, but that is the case. Also, it's illegal, right? Which hopefully we can stop that. I think Oregon is trying to stop that. Like the fact that it's illegal means I got to go do it in the dark. Hopefully nobody finds out because I don't want to go to jail, The other thing is people who are into really heavy drugs that have solidly hijacked their system are afraid that they'll die if they don't get that drug. And it's a primal fear. It's literally you're working on instinct. You're no longer acting like a normal human being. You're now becoming kind of an animal about it. And the problem is that oftentimes you'll resort to any measure. You'll steal from people. You might break into houses. You might, and not even necessarily for the drug. That might just be to survive. You might have already sold your house, sold your car, sold your dog, and you have nothing left. You sold all your food stamps just to get this chemical substance. Now you don't have any more and you don't have anywhere to live. What are you going to do? You're going to freeze to death out in the cold unless you break into this basement quietly and try to sleep there for tonight. And then somebody finds out that an intruder has broken into their home, right? Yeah. So then it's like, oh man, have you met that guy? He's nuts. Don't ever talk to him. He's trouble. There's all sorts of things that can come about because of that. Therapy definitely should be free. Any medical intervention should be free. Yeah. Many people have needed it. Yeah. People still need it. I need it. I don't get it because it's not available. Resources are all taken up and we don't pay therapists well enough. So. White knuckle life, yeah. No, that's okay. Type as much as you want. Thanks for the interaction. Yeah, therapy should be free, but we don't pay therapists enough. We don't pay teachers enough because we're not focused on those things, even though those things would actually benefit society as a whole. They don't benefit the capitalist who's winning capitalism. Replacing sugar with aspartame? Not quite, but kind of. It's unfortunate because a lot of people who struggle with substance use have a history of trauma. Yeah, and then also, even though the root cause of the substance use might not be any deeper than, hey, I just really like this thing that goes into my system. The act of fighting with the police, fighting with loved ones, getting kicked out of your house, selling all your shit, maybe moving across the country, being in jail, all sorts of other things, potentially killing another individual can happen, right? Like all these things are very traumatic. So it's like you might gain trauma along the way and then try to self-medicate for that trauma that you're gaining. It sucks. Such a systemic issue. That's why I'm applying to psychiatry residency. Good. Yeah. That's a noble goal. I commend you for it. Support building, community building is huge for people struggling with SUDs. Yes. For anybody, really. Anybody struggling with anything needs a community to be a part of. That really is like, I think the most useful tool for people is to just have a community that understands you, which is hard to find. Love definitive treatment. Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no definitive treatment. It's, man, everybody's different. And all you can do is just try things and see what happens. You got to make a really good educated guess on what you're going to try first and then have a backup ready for when that fails, if it fails. Thoughts on the Batman? I think that he's the villain of the story. Yeah. I think that Batman is the villain and the police are the lesser villains, but also still villains. And the bad guys are also villains, but the least of the villains. If I were ranking shittiest people from top to bottom, Batman's the shittiest, and then the police, and then the bad guys of Gotham City. Yep. That's how I would rank them. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Batman? I think if you could literally just redistribute your wealth to solve all the problems of Gotham City, but instead you would rather just punch the mentally ill, you're a bad person. What should you do if you don't have access to treatment or therapy for financial or other reasons? Ugh, I hate that question. I don't know. I don't know because so many people struggle and can't find resources. And there's this whole thing where people who suffer from uh, mental illness get stuck in this vicious cycle if they don't have the resources um, or access to treatment and therapy. What they end up doing is they go to the hospital, and so the hospital doesn't know what to do with them. Usually they go to the ER struggling, and the ER goes, well, are you going to kill yourself or somebody else? And you have two options. One is you say yes, and then you're committed, and horrible things happen to you. Or the other one, which is usually the truth, you say no, in which they kick you out on the street. And then in your mental illness, trying to survive, you often try to steal food so that you can eat, or you might be undergoing psychosis if you have schizophrenia and don't have the medication for it. And you might fight a taxi cab thinking it's a gang of people trying to beat you up. That happened to a friend of mine. He literally fought a taxi cab thinking it was a gang of people trying to hurt him. And he went to jail. And you will cycle between the hospital and jail, but usually the jail's a much longer part of the cycle because you stay there a while. And then the moment you're released, you might be released into psychiatric care, depending on how severe the situation is, in which case it needs to be very severe for medical treatment. Then you get your treatment. If you have schizophrenia, you'll get your medical intervention. You finally get help. And then you're like, okay, for a time being, until they kick you out on the street, you can no longer afford your meds. You undergo psychosis again. And then you either end up in the ER, dead, or in jail again. That's our current system. That's what we do currently. Yep. Actually, one of my goals when I should start a GoFundMe for this. One of my goals in undergrad was to create an emergency room just for people who were undergoing mental illness distress, where you can go for free and we will never hold you against your will. You're only there if you want to be there. We're here to help you. If you want to leave, you can leave, but we're hoping you'll stay and you'll trust us. And if you need medication, it's free. Here, take it. If you need therapy, it's free. If you need to keep coming back as an outpatient or stay here as an inpatient, you can make that choice for yourself, and we'll be here to help you make that choice. Unless court stated otherwise that you may not be able to make that decision on your own, in which case then we can try to make that decision for you, but geared heavily towards the clinical aspect and not towards the imprisonment aspect, right? Which is unfortunately our current system is geared towards the imprisonment aspect. It's rather than give you what you need, it's give you what I need you to have so that you're easier for me to handle. And that's a way different thing and way shittier. Yeah. People need somewhere where they can get their meds for free if they need to. Somewhere where they can get therapy for free when they need to. They need somewhere where they can go immediately and just hang out for a few hours if they just need to cool off for a few hours. You know? Can rarely afford it. Oh, right. Crazy to me how, especially mental health, the professionals get diagnoses incorrect or like, try this, nope, try this. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is there's so many different things that could be happening that that's, different clinicians will have different opinions on what they think is happening. And at the end of the day, nobody actually knows what's happening. It doesn't matter what you have or how talented the clinician is. Nobody knows what you have. All they know is it kind of fits under this criteria. And how do I treat that? I don't know. We can try these things, right? And then if we find something that works, awesome. Do we know how it works? Rarely ever. Sometimes we do, but rarely ever do we, honestly, right? That's why it shouldn't be an expensive process. That's a lot of work to go through to get the right treatments. What ends up happening is it's really expensive. People get half-ass treatment and then they just accept it because they can't afford to go back, right? For the first time you've heard that perspective on the Batman, it's true. He's an asshole. Doesn't try to get his villains proper treatment for their mental health issues. Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. DC screwed up with that character, man. Let me tell you. I'm a bat. That's cool. Yeah. If anything, Batman has taught us that capitalism wins every time. There's no hope for anything. Yeah. I wonder if I should still try that GoFundMe. I don't know if I'll be able to get funding for such a thing. I don't even know how to start such a thing. How do you, like, what team of people would I need that would know what they were doing legally, clinically, etc., to just come up with this idea and make it happen? But I would like that to happen. Emergency rooms all across the United States that are geared just for mental health issues, only trained mental health professionals. That way, the other ERs aren't overloaded with these people that they can't treat anyway, and certainly can't treat efficiently, and end up just throwing them in prison anyway. Tom Holland tried to help the villains. What are you talking about? I don't know. Are you about to spoil something for me? Don't do it, Kim. Keep it to yourself. Humanitarian investors, sure, yeah, but I think there are. I think there are people out there that recognize mental health issues as important and recognize a lack of resources. And if I could get enough funding to pay those people really well, like rather than like 40,000 a year, maybe I could pay them 80,000 a year to really do a good job. Because I mean, they are handling severe cases most of the time. That's pretty good pay for therapists, right? Um, Maybe more if I can. That'd be really good incentive, and maybe set the bar a little bit higher for how we treat our mental health workers. And also, given that we have a lack of mental health workers, if people see that it's actually a somewhat lucrative field to go into, maybe we'll have more people and then more resources for it. Batman has to have something wrong with him. Right. Oh, sorry. I'm getting kind of tired. We've been doing this for almost 3 hours. I jaywalk and some rich guy in a bat costume beats the shit out. Somehow he's the good guy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're not fans of the bat in this household. In this household, we love Gengar. Gengar's our homeboy. Oh gosh, that got all glitchy. Can you not see that? There we go. Yeah. For anybody who likes this artwork, this artist, gosh, why is it so bad? Let me take that off real quick. All right, everybody knows I'm on YouTube. Come follow me. Whoops. No, not that. Yeah, we'll take that off. We don't need it anymore. Gengar art. You got little Ghastly in there, then Haunter, then Gengar. If you're interested, this is Sam Bibby. Sammbibby, I think. She is an artist out of the UK who does really cool Pokemon art on TikTok. She's pretty awesome. Yeah. Boo Batman. Yay Gengar. We're the ghost types here. Thoughts on the Pro State? It's fine, I guess. I don't know. What kind of thoughts are you looking for? It's an organ. It's there. It does its thing. Yep. Let's see. Oh. Yeah, they're saying prostate. Yeah. I have no thoughts on the prostate. I don't know. It is helpful for reproduction. You think Batman has a TBI? Getting jumped by goons all the time has to have a toll. Yeah, for sure. Actually, I think he has a TBI from when he was a kid and he witnessed the murder of his parents. I think that was a traumatic injury that resulted in problems with his cognition and development. Yeah, which also can help to reason why he, rather than empathize with the mentally ill, would like to villainize them because it was likely a person who was suffering, maybe mentally ill, suffering from low socioeconomic status that ended up killing his parents because that person was trying to survive, right? So Batman does have survivor's guilt for sure. Yeah. Bring back Pangea. Make a Joker type style movie for Batman now. Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't know why, but that I'm probably gonna have to end this live after this. I got about a minute left, then I think I'm done. I don't know why, but that made me think of the movie Elf. And somebody on YouTube somewhere, just search this. It's really funny, but they did like a teaser trailer of the movie Elf, but as a thriller movie rather than the happy movie that it is. And it's such a funny trailer. Like whoever made it is just absolutely a genius. They make him look like this like mentally ill, like psycho killer, just using clips from the movie and changing the music up a little bit. And it was so good. It's so funny. If you haven't seen that, I recommend it. That's what it kind of makes me think of. Yeah. We need to make a movie about the Batman being the POS that he is and just expose the truth. Guy's an asshole. Yeah. Maybe the Joker wins and redistributes his wealth and becomes the hero. I don't know. Night, Kim. Yeah, we hit the 3-hour mark just now, so I think it's probably time to call it. Wifey probably needs attention. Okay, friends. Thanks for kicking it. Much love, as always. Yeah, Superman's personality is exciting as buttered bread. That's true. I hate Okay, I'll go on this rant. Then I'm done. I hate superheroes whose power is that they're just all powerful. I think it's the biggest cop out, and I think it only lends to people who have weird, like, um, what's a good word for that? People who have weird, like, sociopathic, I don't know, like like delusions of grandeur about themselves. Like that's who the audience is tailored to, or what audience that character is tailored to. Is like how how would I live if I was just all powerful, right? They rarely have like any, like Superman. What's his story? Oh, he's on an alien planet and he's just all powerful. That's the dumbest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so he's an alien and he's just all powerful because he's an alien from another planet where the gravity was really high, so he can fly now or something. I don't know Superman exactly, but I think that shit is dumb. I'm not a big fan of Captain Marvel either for the same reason. Um, what's another one? There are others that are like that too. I just can't do the all powerful superhero. They're just not vulnerable. It's like, oh, but Superman's not relatable because you know, because he's not vulnerable. Okay, well, let's give him kryptonite. What's kryptonite? Well, it's a rock from his home planet. That doesn't make any sense. Why am I vulnerable to a thing that I grew up with? You know what I mean? Like, or well, I guess he grew up on Earth, but like genetically, that thing should not hurt me, right? I don't know. It's good talking and interacting with you. It's one of the best lives I've hopped on in a while. Aw, thanks for saying that. It's really sweet of you. Think his power comes from the prostate? Probably. Probably. You know what? Yeah, I want to say that's the case. Neuroscience. You came for neuroscience and you stayed for Superman's prostate powers. Something about the sun gives him juice. I hate that. Sunny D. It's just a messed up, really long Sunny D commercial. Don't forget to drink Sunny D. It's like 4% juice. Okay, I gotta get the hell out of here. What the fuck? I'm so tired. Neuroscience. Put that on a shirt. Superman sells Sunny D with his prostate powers. Prostate powers of the sun. Yeah, I feel good about this. Bye. Okay, good night. I'm out. I gotta go. Bye. Love you. You're all okay.